Hey, Bulls and Bears. Let's talk about what the Target CEO came out and said today. It's not looking good for the U.S. consumer. Now, we already knew this because what do we see here in the past 5 months? 5 months straight of falling rents. And what do falling rents indicate? Well, that indicates that people's extra cash that they have after paying their other bills is not going as far. So, therefore, people have stopped bidding up rents. And in fact, we're seeing vacancies rise now for rental homes and rental units and apartments, and therefore prices coming down a little bit. Now, this is just the start. I think there's going to be a much bigger correction. We also have all those rescue programs that were started in 2020. Those have ended. So people do not have the lifeline that they once had. We're seeing the costs of living eat up a lot of people's pay. And it's not just me saying that. We even have the Target CEO out here in a recent interview saying pretty much the same thing. Headline here out of CNBC: Target CEO says shoppers are pulling back even on groceries. Target is doubling down on its cautious outlook. CEO Brian Cornell told CNBC, quote, but even in food and beverage categories over the past few quarters, the number of items they're buying has been declining. So here's the thing. You're told that people are spending more. And yes, that's true because everything costs more. But the number of items people are getting is less. So you're paying more for less. And I think a lot of us knew that, but it hasn't been made very obvious. But now we have at least a CEO out there of a major retailer, kind of backing up what we've been talking about here for quite a while. People just don't have the extra money. Now they're telling us the consumer's strong, the economy's strong. Well, if the consumer's so strong, why do we have $1 trillion in credit card debt? $1 trillion, right? Pretty amazing. And of course, they're going to use this spending with the higher prices to pad the GDP numbers because GDP is mostly comprised of consumers out there spending money. And usually it's money they don't have. Usually it's on a credit card or some sort of borrowing. And right now we've got this war spending happening, and that also pads the GDP. We'll talk about that in a different video. It's still mostly comprised, though, of consumer spending. That's still the bulk of the gross domestic product that gets chalked up as economic growth. So that's why we have to keep an eye on that, because the numbers that are put out there, you can't just look at the number and say, oh, the economy is good because look at that number. It's a lot more detailed than that. So that's what this channel's for, is to give you the inside scoop on what's really happening with the economy and why the numbers that are put out there on all these news channels, the business networks, why do those numbers look so good when the average U.S. consumer not doing that good, right? So we want to get into that for you here some more. He also went on to say, this is the CEO of Target still, quote, we've taken a much more conservative approach in planning inventory this year, but we're going to lean into those big seasonal moments and play to win when we know the consumer is looking for something that's new, looking for affordability, looking for that special item for the holiday season, unquote. He went on to say in the interview that there's been now 7 consecutive quarters of declining sales. We're not talking about the dollar amount because the dollar amount's still going up with rising costs. We're talking about the number of items that people are purchasing has dropped now for 7 straight quarters. They can mask it a little bit with higher prices. Then they can step back after the quarter is done and they can say, look, at people are spending more. The consumer's strong. We've heard that now for years. The consumer's strong. In the meantime, though, everybody's getting, I shouldn't say everybody, most people are getting further and further into debt. All right, and that's the real situation here. At least the Target CEO is kind of shedding some light on the actual state or non-strength or non-resilientness of the U.S. consumer. All right, now let's go back to falling rents. And rents haven't fallen by a lot yet, but in some cities it's starting to get pretty significant. And pretty much every episode on this channel will point to evidence that really underpins what's really happening with the economy. And rents is something else that you have to look at because that's how much money people have from month to month in order to try to afford rent. So people aren't borrowing money. So that's instant cash flow that people have. So that gives you a true picture of the economy. Not so much home prices, because home prices, people can just take on a bunch of debt and bid up the price of homes. Rents, not so much. That's why we look at rents along with home prices, along with all this other data here. But here's the cities where rents have dropped the most. Austin, Texas is down 7.3% year over year in rents. And that was followed by Texas, I'm sorry, Dallas. And what I was going to say was Austin and Dallas are both in Texas. Dallas is down 6.2%. Remember, we saw a huge number of people going to Texas, migrating to Texas from expensive states, especially California, but also states like Washington. A lot of people moving to Texas. So those cities saw some big increases over the past few years, but now we're seeing the biggest decreases. So it's kind of like what comes up must come down, and we're seeing Texas cities kind of lead the way in this here. Portland, Oregon, another city that saw a massive influx of people from California, and Florida, Orlando, Florida, both down 5.4%. Also, Atlanta, Georgia, down 5% year over year for rents. So some more affordability, some lower cost of living in some areas, not everywhere. But overall, when you average everything out, rents are down on average, and those are just kind of the biggest drop areas so far. And I think we've got a long ways to go, because if you just look at the debt numbers, it's getting worse every time we look at it. Every time a new report comes out, a new piece of data, the quarterly numbers, month over month, it's all getting worse. So the more debt people accumulate, the less people are going to have left over to be able to pay these inflated rents. So rents have to come down more unless something crazy happens with another 2020, with more shutdowns, more moratoriums, more forgiveness, more rescue programs, helicopter money, the thing. So if that, I said, the thing, that's a famous quote now, isn't it? So with that, we have to hope that doesn't happen, because if that happens, that means something big dropped, like something like we saw in 2020 or something worse. For those types of rescue programs to be re-implemented, that means something big, something awful happened, like 2020. And of course, none of us want to see that. None of us want to go through that again. So I think that's the only thing that's going to happen in order to implement these rescue programs, right? They're not just going to bring them out because people are going broke, just because the cost of living is too high and wages are too low. They're going to bring these things out because of some unseen event that no one could have saw coming, and therefore they have to make it a rescue program because of that. Just had to put my headset on here. Hopefully you can still hear me. I've got some background noise, so I turned this mic off, and just going to go with the headset mic for now. The next part I want to get into still has to do with the cost of living, and how what's being done right now is not going to fix anything. It's actually going to make it worse. Here's an example. In California, the governor implemented a $20 minimum wage for fast food workers. And what did we just find out today? We found out that Chipotle and McDonald's both are going to be hiking menu prices because of this increase in minimum wage requirement for California fast food workers. Right? You see how this doesn't fix anything? So now you've got something else that's going to cost more, cost of living, and that's going to make more people demand higher wages, more strikes. They may pass more laws to say now this industry, that industry needs to pay more because the cost of living is still too high. So we need to let the cost of living come down and have a price correction, just like you see a bubble that's too big, housing prices. The bubble needs to burst. You don't need to throw out more money to people to buy something that costs too much. You need to allow the market to correct itself, and therefore the cost of living will come down. You wouldn't have to have higher wages. You wouldn't see people striking. Things should only cost what people can afford to begin with. But when you have all this manipulation, this rigging, the rescue programs, it distorts the price. Debt, banks handing out money that doesn't exist or loaning out money they don't have. It's all creating a huge price distortion, and therefore there's no price discovery, and the cost of living just remains completely detached from incomes and detached from what people can afford. So here's the latest on this situation here with the minimum wage for California fast food workers. Now, I think they deserve to get paid more, yes, but to say this is the solution to the high cost of living, no, it's not going to fix it. The governor recently signed into law a measure that would give minimum wage earners $20 per hour minimum. California's estimated 500,000 fast food workers will be paid a minimum of $20 per hour, up from the previous $16.21. That's a pretty big pay bump there. That's about a 20% increase there in pay. So will menu items go up an equal 20%? I think it's very likely. But even before this, these places were raising their prices. In fact, I don't think a McDonald's, I haven't been doing McDonald's in years. Um, well, maybe one time to buy a shake, but I didn't really look at the menu. I think the dollar menu is completely gone. In fact, I haven't seen many places at all with a dollar menu. If you do know of a dollar menu, please let me know. But I tried to quit eating fast food a long time ago when I found out how bad it is for you. Sometimes you're in a rush or you just want a coffee, something. I'll still do it in that case, but I try to avoid it anyways. But let me know, is there still a dollar menu out there? What do you think about today's news? The Target CEO warning consumers declining sales, declining in the number of items people are buying. Remember, you're paying more but buying less. So they can show you the numbers and say people are spending more. Look at this, but they're getting less, right? So you know what's happening. I know what's happening. We just have to buckle up, strap in, because things are going to get worse. You know it. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Big love. Keep stacking. Bye for now, and peace.